This is the 2022 Gaec Martin Savenniere. We're talking, of course, about Chenin Blanc. This is a grape that I think doesn't really get the love it deserves, despite the fact that it is produced all over the world. You find it in California, you find it in South Africa, and of course, you find it in its home region here in the Loire Valley. There's a few different places you can find it in the Loire Valley, Vouvray being one of them, but Savenniere is really my first love when it comes to Chenin Blanc from this particular region. And that's because to me, these are the wines that have the intensity, the power, the muscularity of what we love about a rich white wine with all of the lift and the brightness of the wines that we're normally getting from the Loire Valley, specifically like Sauvignon Blanc from Sancerre, Muscadet, things like that. And so when I smell this wine, oh my God, I'm absolutely transported. I remember the very first time I had Sauvignon when I was a little baby Sam, and I remember smelling it going, oh my gosh, this is going to be sweet, right? It's very honeyed. There's a lot of floral. There's some waxiness. There's tons of apple. And then you taste it and you're like, wait a minute. That is so different than what I thought this wine was going to be. It has all of the richness and all of that honeyed sort of texture that we love, but it's so bright and it's so lifted. It's almost electric the way that it makes you salivate on the sides of your cheeks here. You could spend a literal hour just going back and forth smelling this glass because there's so much going on aromatically. And that's Chenin Blanc in a nutshell, right? This is a grape that really loves to be a little bit more on the oxidative side, meaning it loves to start really leaning into those very appley. You can kind of see on here the golden color of this. It is a grape that really loves to lean into this rich style while retaining all of its acidity. It's a really fun and interesting juxtaposition. Of course, when we think of grapes like Viognier that do a sort of similar thing aromatically and with the richness, what we're not getting so much with Viognier that we're getting with this is, of course, the acidity. And so when you smell this, and then you taste it, just note how different those two things are. You're still getting structure and power and intensity, but there is, because of this acidity, there is sort of this lightness, this sort of breath of fresh air. And this is what I find to be so interesting about Chenin Blanc from this region is that you can have these two very disparate things in one glass. This is a family who's been producing wine for over 100 years. They're in their fourth generation. They're doing things sort of the old school way. So you're not going to see any of the big fancy equipment. You're not going to see new French oak barrels. You're going to see very old school things there. And that's really reflective in the glass, right? This is a pure expression of the grape. This is a pure expression of the land and a wine reminiscent of the Loire Valley because the first thing that I want to do when I taste this wine is go get a big block of cheese. Whenever I think of wines in the Loire Valley, I immediately think of eating cheese with them. They are so wonderful with cheese, and Chenin Blanc is no exception, especially if you've got more of those semi-soft to harder cheeses. You know, I love Sauvignon Blanc with a soft goat cheese, with those really fresh cheeses, but when we start inching into things that are more semi-soft in texture, that's when I start gravitating towards Chenin Blanc, especially when you think of cheeses that are really delicious with apples, right? Brie, camembert, that's really where I want Chenin Blanc to be. Now, of course, if you had like a little drizzle of honey on there, if you had some actual apples on the side, that would be amazing. But don't feel like you have to have this wine with food. This is a wine that even though it has great acidity, it's really, really balanced because of the texture that's on this wine. This is also a wine that, believe it or not, can age for a very long time. If you want to buy a few of these bottles and lay them down, you are not going to be disappointed in 5, 10 years. All of those honeyed, sort of intense flavors that you're getting, all of that sort of subtle umami thing on the bottom there, that's all going to intensify over time. This color is going to darken. I mean, look how golden it already is, even only at this 2 year mark. And that really is coming from this grape. It's only going to intensify with time. So if you want more of that, if you want more of that honeyed characteristic, more of that waxy characteristic, go ahead and lay that down and don't touch it for a while. It's going to be just fine. And then last but certainly not least, make sure you're paying attention to temperature. This is not a wine that wants to be served ice cold. Think of this as more of a wine like a Chardonnay, right? We want some of the richness to be able to show through. So the colder that you make this, the less you're going to feel that. So make sure you're serving this at about 50 to 55 degrees. I really wouldn't serve it that much colder. And if you can, make sure you're serving it in either an all-purpose glass like this one or a burgundy glass. That's really where this wine is going to absolutely shine.